Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Gnade, and welcome to our first stream of 2024. Um, we're making a commitment to do this once a month, so I'm going to try to create a format and sort of stick with it for this year. Obviously, if you're watching or you have a question that comes up or something piques your interest, feel free to add it to chat, and I will make sure to get to it. I'm Mike Gnade, and welcome to our first stream of 2024. One second, I've got chat on my phone and to do this once a month. Got chat on my phone and it's doubling what I'm saying, which is no good. But so this stream is going to cover sort of the stuff we've been working on every month in the past month and give you an update on everything we've got sort of in the pipeline. If you're a member of our newsletter, you know that we put together this sort of visual indication of the games that are sort of being worked on and coming out or in process. And we intend to use this stream as a way to sort of answer any questions directly about that and sort of talk about things that have happened with our monthly playtests and where things are sort of currently with any given game. So, and obviously we'll share stuff behind the scenes with you as well, as far as art and assets and things as they come in, and we get those things from artists and illustrators as we go. So to start out, I've got a little list here, and just sort of as part of this intro, I'm just going to go through and sort of give a quick overview of where our projects sit. I've done my best to put them in sort of chronological order, so this is sort of the order you could expect them to be released in or coming to you from. But first up, we have Set a Watch, Doomed Run, and Forsaken Isles. We actually did an update earlier this week about that particular game, and it will be coming, hopefully getting on a ship at the end of this month and freighting to the USA and other shipping hubs around the world, and then making its way to you sometime at the end of the first quarter or beginning of the second quarter next year. So if you're looking forward to Set a Watch, Doomed Run, and Forsaken Isles, those will be coming. We've gotten a lot of questions recently about, can I add to my pledge last minute? I missed it. Can I get it? And the answer is no, everything's completely locked, because once we reach this stage, making sure everything is fulfilled in a fast manner for everyone that has finished those things is very important to us. So we're focusing on that first. Um, once things are on a ship and have started fulfillment and we have some idea of how much stock is left, we'll start releasing extra stock to our website, and we will be sure to put out a newsletter when that stuff is available in our web store for people that are interested in those things and getting things that they missed. So if you're one of those people out there that did not back Doomed Run or did not uh, get their pledge completed or get everything they wanted in time, you are a little bit of a straggler, but that's okay. We can take care of stragglers. We just can't do it right now in the middle of freighting everything, locking addresses, and making sure shipping facilities have everything they need to get those games fulfilled as quickly as possible. So, in about a month or so, we'll start releasing extra stock once we have final counts of things that have been received at their depots uh, for pre-orders. It'll basically be a pre-order first, but it's a pre-order for stock that is there, and we're just waiting to get through backers before we fulfill the pre-orders. So that will be the next step in that project. Next up, we have Merchants of Magic and its expansions, Dangerous Business, and Drought of the Dragons. Those files have just been sort of finished up and are heading to the factory and uh, manufacturers and things for pre-production. So I think we're actually a little bit ahead of our time frame. We had a goal of making sure everything went to pre-production after Chinese New Year, but I think we're actually going to start some pre-production stuff, get a little bit ahead of it here over the next week, because we sent all of those files in for that just this past few days. So that's in good shape. Last week, so the next game will. So now we're into stuff that isn't out yet, hasn't come to Kickstarter or crowdfunding. This is all stuff that is in the pipeline to come to crowdfunding or come to a store near you at some point. First up, I want to talk about Star Driven Gateway, because that is going to be sort of our big crowdfunding push and project this coming year at least. It will definitely go to a crowdfunding site sometime this year. We're looking at no earlier than Q3, most likely beginning of Q4, end of the summer, fall, I think is when we're shooting for Gateway coming on, just because this is the first game in a big IP that we've been developing over 5+ years, which will have additional games in it. So we want to make sure the first one out of the gate, Gateway as it is, as it were, is successful. And this is the part of the stream where I'd like to hop over to Tabletop Simulator, because what we're sort of preparing to do and working on doing is there's still a few pieces of the game that we're actively working on, of course, but we really do want to start locking things in and focusing more on balance. And part of that is going to be to have this Tabletop Simulator mod ready to go for anyone to play on our Discord channel. So if you're interested in being a playtester or in joining me or one of the designers of the game to play the game, like some people did last week, we actually played a 4-player game, and this was the first time that we introduced the 2 other factions. We have 4 asymmetrical factions here. And I'll go over a little bit of how it works and some of the stuff we changed this past week or we're sort of looking on. So if you can't tell by this stark white deck right here, these are the Warbound. They're like the AI controlled ships. They have a big gunboat, and then the gunboat flies around launching these interceptors. And they're sort of the NPC players that mess with you in a competitive game. And they'll also be one of the cooperative scenarios or episodes, as we call them in this particular game. You'll be able to fight against these Warbound in a cooperative mission where they're either scoring points or they're trying to raid the council worlds of Star Driven. But the concept of Star Driven Gateway, sort of to get you guys into the world and what it's all about, is Star Driven Gateway is the first game in a series of at least 3 games based on this sci-fi IP we've developed. In this particular game, there is a sector of space which has uncovered this gateway from an ancient civilization. And over the course of different episodes and competitive scenarios, you will try to get access to this gateway by visiting these 5 worlds that are face up, are the 5 civilizations or council worlds that sort of control this sector of space. So it's on the outer reaches of the United Worlds and sort of colonized space. So these particular civilizations have sort of hit the jackpot here, where there's an influx of interest in this ancient gateway and the technology held within it. So we have different factions coming in, trying to gain access to the gateway and the technology, win over these worlds by completing missions and helping their area of space, and then by gaining that reputation with each world, scoring different points throughout different scenarios and episodes. So each episode in this game is effectively a variant of the core game. Like from episode to episode, the actual gameplay doesn't change up a lot, but there's a lot of different scoring opportunities and things like that. So if we're looking at episode 1, we have these reference cards for people. This is when you're trying to get unrestricted access to the Sojourner ruins on these council worlds to better understand the gateway. And you're going to score different points doing different stuff in the game. If you get world control by having the most reputation on one of these worlds, you will get 3 points. Each reputation point, which you get from doing missions, is worth 1 point. And then in this particular scenario, anomalies are highly valued, and they're worth 5 points. Recruiting freelancers and promoting your crew is 2 and 3 points respectively. And then taking hull damage, which is permanent damage that you can't heal to your ship, is a negative point. So that's sort of the intro episode. At least that's what the intro episode is now. Of course, as with these things that are in development, everything is sort of subject to change. But, our goal is to let people get excited about these games and understand what's, some of the things that they can look forward to, whether it's gameplay mechanics, world building, etc. Whatever type of thing is important for you in your game, in your game night, in your game group. Hopefully, something we're covering will be of interest in these videos. And again, we're going to try to keep these things short. We don't want to spend hours upon hours streaming stuff. We want to give everyone a taste of what's coming, and then sign off and keep it to the point. So let's talk about the factions in the game a little bit. So over here, we have the United Worlds faction. This is the faction most inspired by the designer Todd Walsh's love of Star Trek. So this is sort of the Federation, if you will. Every ship has a deck of crew that it comes with. Your crew cards are double-sided. They are normal side and promoted side. So when you flip these cards over, you actually have to keep them face up in the deck accordingly. And you'll promote characters as you play. And the Federation has has a bigger crew than most. Their ship's a little bit bigger. So they have 14 starting cards, and their crew members are very skilled. They have a lot of skills, specialized skills, but they don't have as much what we call crew value, which is this number in the upper right. They just don't have as much of it as some other factions. So you're going to want to work on assigning them to the correct station and promoting them so that you can compete with the other factions. But what you do is everyone will start with a hand of cards from their crew. And on your turn, the two actions you can take are you can assign a crew to a station. You can put any crew in any station, but matching these symbols, these skill symbols at the top, so you can see I've matched navigation to navigation on this crew, that is the requirement of being able to promote somebody. So at the end of your turn, if you have XP to spend, you can spend XP to promote somebody at a station where their skills match. Otherwise, you'd have to do it through some in-game effect or something like that. But what you'll do is you have two actions on your turn, and you will assign crew to a station by placing them on your board, or you will assign a die to a station. If you place it in these spots, you need to match the color. But then, of course, each station has a wild spot, which is black or gray, that you can play any die color there. And then each station basically does sort of a different action. That's how you control and move your ship. So this game, and one of the focuses of this game, is to focus on the crew of your ship and managing the crew of your ship. I'm going to move all this out a little bit because it's like attached, it's like going to my hand and messing stuff up. And then the other thing you'll do as part of setup is you'll choose an outpost on one of the starting worlds to set up, to choose, and your ship will launch there. And we have different technology, like missiles if you want to be more aggressive, and railgun if you want to be aggressive, or maybe you want to have like the med bay and the shuttle for completing missions instead. So you'll pick two technologies to sort of outfit your ship in whatever you think is most advantageous for the scenario or episode that you're playing. And then these are free actions where you can exhaust if you've met the dice threshold of activations on your board. But I don't want to get into too much nitty-gritty of the game. I sort of want to talk about generally each faction. So the United Worlds faction, they want this sector of space to join the United Worlds, obviously, so they can have more access to this technology. So they're out there completing missions in the hopes that people will decide to join the United Worlds and become a voting member of their government. Over here, we have the Travelers Union, or at least that's what we're calling them right now. They are the Amazon of space, if you will, the Amazon and power provider of space. In the star-driven universe, civilizations sort of become power independent because the way you move in the game with your gravity drive is you'll notice that there's a number on each of these tiles. And if you match that number exactly, you can jump right to it. So let's say I spent a 2 on navigation and I had a character there, then I would play a character there and then I could jump, spending a 2. And when you use the gravity drive, you generate power. So there's sort of this unlimited supply of power, and the trade union is all about delivering power and goods by traveling around a lot. So depending on what technology you pick for their ship, you can play an entirely different game where you're not doing missions as much, but you're visiting planets and delivering cargo and power for reputation points, which is another path to victory for them in particular. They have a ship that has a very large hull. Hold on a second. I've got a call. What do you need? Uh-huh. This guy that came today, I got him some credit to do some major analysis. He just, I mean, he was there 2 hours. Okay, hold on, let me just put this on pause. Hold on, guys. I've got a plumbing issue here at my house, and I need a recap. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to put it on pause and mute it here for a second. Give me 5 minutes. Sorry about this. Sorry about that, everybody. We've got it's been quite the day. We had to hot water. I don't know if anyone's had their hot water heater get interfered or kicked out, but we were dealing with that. And of course, the plumbers say they're going to be there between 10 and 2 o'clock, and then they come right 10 minutes before I have to. We have calls and things scheduled, and it's just been a nightmare. So it's all handled now. Everything's done. I won't be interrupted again. But sorry for that quick interruption or timeout in the stream. Okay, let's get back to the Travelers Union. We talked about how they sort of have a different path to victory. Um, their their ship is has more hull, and all the ships are a little different with their starting situations. Uh, and their crew is smaller, and it's made up of these managers, which have strong abilities, and then these chumps. We'll give them real names like the other crew, but obviously this is a new faction we're working on. We actually just got the art finished, so we're not using these sketches anymore. But they have sort of like low-level workers and managers who have different abilities and different values and skills. So obviously the managers have more skills than the entry-level workers, if you will. And then we'll go over here to the privateers, who, at least before we had these new factions, were my favorite faction. They're sort of the smugglers, independent contractors, workers out there who like the system as it is because they're able to get jobs from anybody and sort of work in the black market. They feel like they have a lot of freedom. They have a smaller deck of cards, but their crew values are higher. Their numbers are higher because their crews, while they have less skill, are sort of more versatile when it comes to completing missions. You can send them on missions more easily and use any of them to complete missions. They also have one of their crew members has an ability to recruit freelancers straight from the market. There's a market of freelancers out here of other people that anyone can hire for their ship crew on their ship. And the privateers have some abilities that let them recruit more heavily from the center row and potentially accumulate points that way compared to other factions. And then last but not least, we have the Synth Syndicate or the Synth Network. Basically, this faction is made up of a bunch of robots. In our future, all of these advanced species and civilizations have made sentient AI at some point in their history. And each of those sentient AIs who have joined the Synth network have gone to leave their civilization to join this network to hopefully eliminate all the biases of the culture that created them, the sort of inherent biases they inherited from their creators. So the Synth network has the smallest deck of crew, but they have a lot of abilities that let them use unmanned stations. So you can see we have the Robo Ursine here. We have sort of a robot inspired by each of the um, species, different species in the game, in the world. So again, the Synth network is a very durable thing that does not have a lot of power to use. It's a smaller ship, but with less crew. But their crew are very proficient since they're robots, and they have a lot of abilities to trigger their stations without having them manned, through automation. So that gives them a little bit different of a wrinkle. But basically, over the course of the game, what you'll be doing is you will be, setting your ship out here, exploring tiles, uncovering these exploration tiles, encountering anomalies, which you will collect for points. You saw in that scorecard that anomalies are worth a lot of points in the first scenario. Uh, two of the stations on your ship activate different types of movement. So there is helm movement, which is sort of roll and move, where whatever die value you spend, each of these tiles, they will look like this sort of odd shape. But for whatever reason, Tabletop Simulator, when you flip things over, it sort of becomes a hex again. So you will, the helm is roll and move, so you'll move through these tiles like 1, 2, 3, and you'll reveal and encounter these exploration tiles and reveal new systems that you can do missions on. And then if you're on a planet with a, where are the missions? Here are the missions. Here are some missions, I should say. So if I wanted to do this ice mission, I would need to discard crew members from my ship. And every time I say discard, they go back into your crew quarters deck to be drawn out later. But if I wanted to complete this rogue scientist mission, I would need to discard somebody with those 2 skills on the left and a total crew value of 5. And we'll put that in front of me here. We'll do a little simulation. We'll see if we can do it. So let's say I wanted to complete this mission. So I would need to look for those symbols. I have them here. So I could discard this guy back to crew quarters. I'd put him on the bottom. And then that would give me 3 value. But I need 5 value, so I would need to discard 1 other player from my hand or ship. So let's say I discarded him. And that would complete this mission. And I would put in my completed mission section. I would get this reward of recruiting a freelancer from the market. And then I would gain 1 rep. And I would place that reputation token on the nearest council world to where I completed this mission. So I'd place it on this world, and whoever had the most reputation on this world at the end of the game would win that planet for scoring. But yeah, that's a quick overview of Star-Driven Gateway. I think that's enough for now. I don't want to dwell on something that people haven't played on, and we're not getting any questions about it, so hopefully I'm doing a good job of explaining it. But that's sort of a preview of Star-Driven Gateway. If you're interested in playing this game in more detail, check, we're doing monthly playtests now online, and over the course of the next month or so, this game should be readily available as sort of a mod in Tabletop Simulator, with hopefully, the thing we don't have right now is the rules effectively. We don't have draft rules that you can play from. But Todd is writing those, and we should have those soon. And once we upload those and make a few changes since our last playtest, which was quite successful, this will be readily available to play online at your leisure. And we'll have ways that you can fill out, a form or survey and let us know what you think. And, the big thing for us is we want to record the scores of each faction to make sure the factions are balanced. So, if we have 10 different people play test it, we don't want to hear that the synth are winning 6 out of 10 of those times. That means they're too strong. So we'll need to balance them accordingly. So we're hoping that people will start playing it, getting familiar with the game, and also recording scores from their playtests so that we can adjust things accordingly and balance the game before it even hits crowdfunding, let alone gets printed. So again, make sure you join our Discord channel if you're interested in playtesting. Last week we did have a playtest, and we had 4 people playing, which was great. 3 of us had played before, and we had 1 new player who actually picked it up and came in second place. I only beat him by 1 point. But granted, some of it we did have some issues. One of the big issues we had is we're trying out this. We playtested as a bunch of PAX Unplugged, and we were activating the Warbound on a dice roll, just a 1 to 6 dice roll, and they activate if they're sitting on a tile with that number. And one of the problems we had with it is, as with dice, you can have streaks where you're rolling 3, 3, 3, 3, and that means you're either getting pummeled because the raiders are sitting on a 3 and they keep activating and shooting you over and over again. Or the other problem is they're not sitting on a 3 and just nothing's happening because you're getting streaky with the dice and they're sitting on numbers 1, 2, and 5 or something. So we've switched to this deck we've been trying out where the 6 numbers are spread out evenly to avoid streaks and make their activations more consistent. And then if they don't activate we have these effects on the back of the cards that could trigger. Well, we sort of overcorrected in our last playtest, and the Warbound were activating way too often, and pummeled several players. In fact, it's the first time in a game we've actually seen a ship blow up to end the game. So I literally didn't think it was possible before, unless people really hammered each other and tried to do it to sort of break the game, but I never thought it was an optimal thing to do. But the Warbound actually successfully blew up a player last turn. And while the timing of it was about right, the activation of them was off. So one of the things I need to change in this mod before we publish it for everyone is we've already edited this deck. The numbers aren't changing. We're still going 1 through 6 and have an even number of those, but how each ship activates, and more importantly, when a ship doesn't activate by your number roll, what you flip over and what happens has been adjusted already. That's the big change we need to get in here on this current build of the game. But I think that's good for star-driven gateway for now. Again, if it's something that's interesting, looks interesting to you, we'd love to have you as a playtester and get your name in the rulebook. Just make sure you join our Discord channel and keep your eyes posted on our game nights where we'll be demoing it, or the link to the mod on Tabletop Simulator so you can demo it yourself later. But that is Star-Driven Gateway. Let's go back to my other notes. I'm going to close this down and switch back to just the webcam. We don't need that anymore. So next up, I think the game that will come out after Gateway is this Heist game I've been working on for a while. It doesn't really have a title, but it is set in the 1980s. And let's see if you guys want to see some artwork and cards. I have that. Let's go to the crew cards. And this game, the core of this game, I actually designed in like a week, a couple of years ago, where I just got stuck on another thing I was working on. And this is sort of the nature of how I design games, or I tend to design games, which is I get an idea and I can't get the idea out of my head. So I keep sort of toying with it, or I write it all down to get it out of my head so I feel better about it. And, over the course of 2 weeks, I basically sketched out the core of what this game has sort of become. And the core systems have sort of stayed in place. But then a lot of the peripheral systems I've started really honing in on and refining more and more. But again, it's going to be after. Let's see if this works. I don't want that on. It's not capturing my. Let's add a source. We'll add a screen capture. See if this works. Give me a second, guys. I'm trying to get my screen share up and running so you can see. There we go. Okay, ignore that because that's going to trip you out. So the heist game I'm working on is all about collecting your crew of people and stealing money and laundering it. So we're going with a 1980s sort of vibe for it. And here we can make these look better. I'm in my InDesign file here. But basically what these cards do is you have a hand of crew cards. You never shuffle them. It's not like a hand of cards like that. On your turn, you must choose a card to play from your hand, and then you may tap as many cards as you want for their tap ability, which you can see at the bottom here in this blue area. um, so the play effect is in the white area, and then the tap effect is the blue area. And you're basically running around a city, trying to move to different locations. Each crew member has a location associated with them that they're especially good at stealing from. So the actress is obviously good at stealing from the theater for any heists that occur at the theater. And you are playing these cards to generate resources. The resources we have are tools, which is this symbol here. This is the cost of recruiting the actress to your team. The getaway driver costs 2. So these are one of the resources in the game. This is sort of my attempt to make more of a Euro game where there's the only randomness and dice rolling in this game is really the police patrolling the city and where they're patrolling. And obviously it's just setting the patrol, then you know which way they're going. And then once they reach that patrol destination, they just sort of randomly pick a new destination to go to, unless you set off alarms for heists. So the resources you have in the game are tools or supplies, whatever you want to call this. It's what you use to hire people and conduct heists. Then you have the victory point condition is cash, so it'll be these stacks of dollar bills. That's what you're going for at the end. But you can't directly earn cash. What you do is you'll earn these chips, because it's sort of set in a Vegas, Atlantic City, Reno type situation. And then you need to cash those chips out for victory points. So you'll be laundering money at different locations throughout the city as well, trying to take that stolen cash and making it sort of legit money. The other resource in the game are your crew meeples, which will sit out on the board and act sort of as like an area control. So there's a little person face here. And then heat is a negative resource, I guess. This is sort of how aware the cops are onto you. So heat's bad. The higher your heat, the more the cops will chase you. And then the last resource is intel, which right now is this eyeball. That helps you. That's like the knowledge and intel to rob places accordingly. But here's some of our crew cards. What's funny about this game is while it's further out than Star Driven Gateway, the artist we used was like super fast. So we actually have like almost all the artwork for this game done. We're finishing the graphic design of some of the cards. So we have the graphic design of the crew cards and the starting cards and the heist done, but we don't have the board graphic design done or the city tiles that you move around and things like that. There's still a lot of stuff that before we playtest it to the public, I'd like to have done because I feel like we're pretty close to it. So this is the Untitled Heist game. That's a quick overview of that. Then the other stuff we're working on is we have Star Driven Saga. So going back to this sci-fi IP, we have Star Driven Saga, which is the spiritual successor to my Maximum Apocalypse series. The planet exploration side of that game, where you're moving around planets, revealing tiles based on each biome of the planet that you're landing on, is very similar to Maximum Apocalypse. A few new wrinkles, a few substantial changes that it made sense putting in a new game and not making it, it was a good break point to not make it compatible with Maximum Apocalypse, although I think there will be a way to, there may be a way to somehow homebrew some backwards compatibility potentially down the line, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But the core exploration mechanic of the systems is very similar to Maximum Apocalypse and the way you explore tiles and combat enemies on there. But then you have this duality where you're also interacting with a storybook and missions and the saga of the overarching systems. And you're also bouncing between being on your ship and being on planet. Your character can move back and forth between them using a shuttle. So there's some space combat and other systems that are sort of being inserted around the core Maximum Apocalypse system, if you will. Also some dice rolling and dice. You sort of count dice as instead of counting 4 actions like you do in Maximum Apocalypse, you use dice to count your actions, and you get a few extra actions because sometimes you need to spend 2 dice to do 1 action. So the action economy is a little bit more variable, a little bit trickier. but there's not a lot of progress to report on Saga because we've been working on some of this other stuff that we know is going to come out ahead of it. Our goal is to get Gateway to crowdfunding, produce Star Driven Gateway, have it arrive at people's houses so they can start playing it, and then shortly after that time period, shortly after people are playing that, having Saga sort of hit crowdfunding and be in that stage. So, despite Saga's core systems are very solid, they've been play tested not at this Gen Con, but actually Gen Con 2 years ago. And nothing drastic has changed, but because it's this campaign in the Saga, uh, part of the problem is it's really hard to design campaign games because you have to play through stuff. When you make a major change, you have to go back to square one and play through from mission one back to the point you were in your campaign. And to be honest with you guys, I got super burned out with doing Doomed Run and the campaign there and playing it and doing campaign games that it was very refreshing to step away from Saga and focus on some of these other designs in the development process. So we'll get back to it, but it's one of those things that uh, there's a lot of work to be done as far as the campaign and storytelling elements go in that game, more so than the game mechanisms. But we're still working on it, and we'll get to it. And last but not least, we have Star Driven Colony, which is the last game I'm sort of going to talk about on this stream, just to give you an update of what we're working on. And then if there's any questions, we'll address those. And then we'll sign off for the week. But Star Driven Colony is a competitive colony building game where everyone's building the same colony, but you're competing to be sort of the mayor or governor of that colony. And you're earning different points on different tracks to be elected the curator or protector of the colony. So that will be, you'll be building the colony with tiles. You'll be recruiting citizens and civilians to work on building those tiles, recruiting leaders to the cities, activating the tiles in the city to defend yourself from invading enemies and enemy ships, because there's bad guys out there like the Warbound from Star Driven Gateway that want to blow up your colony and destroy it. So there's some semi-cooperative elements, I guess. There's some cooperative elements where if you don't want the colony to blow up, so everyone will work together to sort of fight off and protect it. But depending on what score track you're trying to move up, you may protect it more or less depending on sort of the points you're going for. So that's something that we, a few months ago, right before the holidays, we actually play tested it in succession a lot between me and the other designers working on these star-driven games. And since then, we haven't played it recently, but there's certainly a digital prototype out there with it's much rougher than some of the stuff I showed you today with much less final art and graphics. But there is a prototype out there that we're actively sort of playtesting on and working on that we could potentially share with people who are interested uh, on some of these playtest nights. If it was something you wanted or mentioned that you were interested in playing on Discord with us. But that's Star Driven Colony. I can just sort of talk about it in a grander, here's my notes, in a grander sense, since I don't really have any artwork to show you other than some really rough early stuff. But with that, I think that's the end of sort of our in development stream. If you're watching this live or watching this later on YouTube, please put in the comments and let us know what you'd like us to cover in the future. This is basically just an hour, office hours, a chance to talk with me or someone else on the Rock Manor Games team directly about what we're working on and what we have in development in the game design and development process. This is all part of my personal goal this year is to make Rock Manor Games more community focused or focus on some of these community building aspects of things where we can slow down on pumping the games out and really try to work on building a community around certain games, whether it's playtesting online or on YouTube or wherever gamers are these days, basically. Um, but this was our first stream of the year, and I'm still sort of coming up with a format or things to talk about. But I think that's it for this week. If there's any questions, like I said, this is sort of your last chance to hit it up in the live chat. Otherwise, I will be moving on to the next thing on my long list of things to do. But I wanted to make sure at least once a month we took an hour to engage with our community and our audience and address any concerns, questions they had, but also show the stuff we're working on to let them know that we're hard at work on the next things and the next games that they'll hopefully enjoy on their table as well. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now. It's been a crazy day. I'm so sorry for having to step away from the stream to deal with paying the plumbers and uh, dealing with freezing pipes and things. I live on the East Coast, and if you live on the East Coast of the United States, you know that we're dealing with like crazy temperatures. We had a huge snowfall. My car's been frozen all week. My kids have been home from school, late arrivals. It's been quite the week in the household here, dealing with the weather and school cancellations and closures and late starts. So thanks for everyone for the kind words. We are trying to keep up the good work. Thanks for the positive reinforcement there, Ed. And we will see you next month. Remember that this year we have monthly playtesting on our Discord channel every the second Thursday of every month. And then the third Thursday of every month, we're going to have this live stream. So for future playtests, I'll do my best to maybe record some of that and have things maybe queued up where we can walk through gameplay or a playtest and things like that and decode what's working and what's not working in a game. But these are we've got 2 opportunities a month where you can interact with us and hear what's going on or get a glimpse of what's going on behind the curtain. So thanks so much for watching. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Make sure you get notified when we go live the next time. And until then, we will see you next month. I'll see you next month, and we'll talk about whatever we accomplish in the next 4 weeks as well. I'll try to have, maybe I'll have something set up live on my table, and we can play through Doomed Run or Forsaken Isles or some of the new stuff we have in production and pre-production live as well, and answer any questions. So again, let us know what you want us to do. Happy to do it. And wish everyone the best of luck and hope everyone has a great weekend. And we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.